Well, festivities in the air and plenty of fireworks were on show in Abu Dhabi last night from India's batsmen obliterating Afghanistan and putting points on the board. Now, whether or not that translates into a semi-final spot, we still have a few days. Until then, we've got to focus on other teams who are making their own quest for a last four spot. We'll go in reverse order of what's on the menu today. First up, the evening match is going to be the defending champions, the West Indies, taking on Sri Lanka, who may be out of the tournament, but they've got plenty to play for still as they build up to another tournament in 12 months' time. But before that, that one comes from Abu Dhabi. The afternoon match that we're looking at right here, right now, is Australia versus Bangladesh from Dubai. This is match number 34, all coming from Group 1, and it's a crucial one for the Australians. Welcome to Cricbuzz Live, and I'd like to welcome on the panel with a very, very happy Diwali to all of you and to Joy and Harsha. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Very happy Deepavali to everybody, and I hope the festive season brings with a lot of joy for everybody, because we only live once.
The only person who doesn't need extra joy is Joy himself. He's already got himself a company.
I've already got myself a company, and I want to wish everyone a happy Diwali and a happy belated Kukut Tihar. Kukut Tihar is this celebration in Nepal, lots of North Bengal, where dogs are worshipped on the one day that they put garlands around dogs and really worship them. So yeah, that's a good one as well. So may everyone enjoy the festival they love most.
Yes, but when it comes to festivities, it's not maybe going to be such a happy festive season for the Bangladeshis. As we have a look at the points table, they were one of the early teams to be eliminated after that jhatka, if you like, in the qualifying stages when they should really have gone to India's group. Bottom of the table at the moment, but again, the reasons why we will try and illustrate over the next few minutes, they will have plenty to prove against Australia. For Australia, well, 4 points on the board. They're competing like for like against South Africa for that second semi-final spot. And, well, it's even Stevens there, lots of net run rate to play for as well. Well, let's start by talking about Bangladesh. Harsha, everyone remembers the Bangladesh versus Australia series. Australia may have talked about the pitch, but from Bangladesh's perspective, they've done well at home. They need to tick a few boxes overseas.
It's a peculiar game, isn't it? I don't know any other game that is quite the same relationship between teams as cricket does. Australia play Bangladesh in Bangladesh on a certain kind of surface and virtually don't compete. Australia come play against Bangladesh on a different surface, same laws, same games, virtually the same players, and there's no relation to what went before. And I remember saying, and I got a lot of flack from people in Bangladesh for that, saying these pitches are not going to help you. These pitches are a smokescreen. If you want to play 120 games all your life, then you will be very good at home, and the fact of becoming good at home will make you vulnerable overseas. And to my mind, they've been the biggest disappointment of this particular T20 World Cup. Away 6-15, I'd like to see where the 6 came from as well, because I think Bangladesh need a lot more self-belief, a little more awareness that they're actually a good side. There's actually a lot of talent in there. I think Shoma Sharkar hasn't become the player that he could become. Liton Das is not becoming the player that he can become. Mahmudullah did not become the player that he can become. He was a fantastic player, Mahmudullah. I think only Mushfiqur Rahim has become the player that he could not have become. No Shakib. Where's all the others coming through? And I think if Bangladesh just give themselves belief, it's pretty much this side that beat England so handsomely and playing a very contemporary form of cricket. But that was 6 years ago at the World Cup, 50-over World Cup of 2015. They're a good, decent 50-over World Cup in 2019 as well. But here they seem obsessed with playing with 16 overs of spin. So I hope they do better. I hope they do better, because this Australian side is not the Australian side of the past. So the T20 World Cup record is something that they want to wake up and pretend is not true.
Yeah, Joy, I mean, ignore some of the other tournaments where they've got a couple of wins thrown in here. Let's stick to the tournament and the format we're talking about here. It was a perfect start for them. They beat the West Indies way back in 2007. And since then, it's been a complete drought.
Yeah, they haven't competed at all. And, I just want to add to Harsha's point. And one of the reasons that these things happen is because you have a board who wants immediate results. So you have an administration who wants immediate results. So their worry is that suppose we set pitches that are fair, that allow our fast bowlers to develop, that allow international other teams coming here to have a chance and not just 16 overs of spin, then what happens is you're not going to get so many wins at home. You're going to go through a period of pain while your team adjusts to these new pitches. And what will happen at that point in time? If you're in a situation at that point in time, people will say, oh, Bangladesh is losing at home, let's change the management. So no management seems to want to take the risk and bite the bullet, saying, because if you bite the bullet now, you'll get results only 3 years later. And it's exactly, I find it very analogous to, companies who deal quarter by quarter, saying, my shareholders are not going to be happy with this next quarter. So I don't care. I don't want to take the pain now. It's not solving anything long term, but I need the result now, because who knows, if I'm not going to be there next quarter, how does it matter if it's going to be well or not? So all policies like this are inherently short term. I mean, I remember somebody talking about this, and Japan had a World Cup. When they started playing football properly, they had a World Cup plan. Their World Cup plan in the 80s was 100 years. That in 2082, within 2082, we'll win a World Cup. And other countries can't hope for that kind of a vision, but at least they can be a bit more long-term than this.
Yeah. The only thing I will say before we go to the toss and all is, I can understand why Bangladesh are doing that. India did that. Lost a test against England, the first test in Chennai. See what happened for the next 3 test matches. When you needed, when you didn't have to prepare those wickets, but you would still have won. So I can understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And interesting, Joy, you should mention Japan. Football was one thing. They had a similar kind of vision, not maybe that long term for their rugby. And they sort of fulfilled all their expectations. They hosted a Rugby World Cup and they performed really well. It was not just they were saying, come to our country and visit our beautiful country. They were saying, come, we can also play rugby. And I think
didn't they have a Labuskachny in their team? The captain of Japan? Was it Japan or was it some other country?
Probably some other country, but they did have an interesting name that was as non-Japanese as it gets.
Now they're competing in basketball as well. But again, that's a different point. But again, they just have such a long-term view, it makes sense.
Yeah, you were right about that. I'm not sure if he was a captain or not, but yeah, spot on. A few players they had a lot of islanders from Samoa and places like that who were half Japanese. So that really helps.
There is Peter Hermeas Cornelius Labuskachny.
There you go.
Played for Japan. Anyway, we are talking Australia, Bangladesh. Somewhere else.
But that happens with the three of us, Harsha, and we love it, and we'll keep it just that way. Japanese rugby, and we're talking Australia, Bangladesh at a Cricket World Cup. But let's remind you of the toss. Australia have won the toss and have cordially sent an invitation to Bangladesh. Please come and bat. Our bowlers are going to be up first. So first test for Bangladesh is going to be to sort out an area of the game that maybe hasn't been their strength this tournament or for a while now. Quick change. Mustafizur comes back in. He should have been there all along. It's Nasoom who makes way for the returning Fizz.
Right. So what's their bowling now? Mustafizur, Taskin, Shariful, 3 weeks. Mahedi is the off spinner. Who's the 5th bowler in this side now? So Shamim can bowl a little bit of off spin. Mahmudullah can bowl a little bit of off spin, but they don't have a 5th bowler. Shamba Sharkal bowl a bit of seam up.
Yeah, those three. There's nobody else.
That's the problem because Shamim Hussain is a like-for-like replacement for Shakib Al Hasan, who's an out-and-out all-rounder. Bowl is 4 overs. Shamim is not necessarily going to deliver all that. So they're falling short of a bowler and they've left out Nasoom as well. So, Joy, a few worries there, even in terms of trying to get an 11 together with the right bowling options.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's why they're forced. Shomo Sharkar was not their first choice, but they're forced to persist with him because the cupboard is comparatively rare. Shakib going out is a huge, huge difference to them because he impacts their batting, he impacts their bowling, and now they're struggling to balance their side. It's like if a Ravindra Jadeja goes out from the Indian team at this point in time, take that and magnify it by 2 when you have the Shakib problem because Jadeja bats at 6 and 7, Shakib bats at 3 for them. So they are just trying to make 2 and the batsmen up front are either being timid and the day Liton Das seems to get going, hits a couple of 4s, he then goes and gets himself out. So somebody needs to find rhythm. And this attack is not the attack that's going to give them too many freebies.
Yeah, Mushfiqur didn't start well.
Yeah. Expect since Australia are bowling first, expect them to come hard at the top with genuine pace, not take pace off. They would have seen what Rabada did. They would have seen what Nokia did. They would have seen even someone like Mushfiqur Rahim, who's their most accomplished, most experienced player, out fending the ball up there. So expect a lot of genuine fast bowling once again directed at Bangladesh.
Certainly will be. And if you have a look at their batting, it's also a cause for worry, Harsha, in terms of runs that they've put on. Shakib out. They're missing Tamim Iqbal, who's the big innings player. Nobody has got 100 runs for them in this tournament.
Now, let me explain to you what I was saying. I mentioned Liton Das, I mentioned Mahmudullah, I mentioned Shamma Sharkar. Afif is a good player, but the guy who's number 3 on that list, Mohammad Naeem, came to India 2 years ago. And we saw him get a couple of 30s. And I asked Athar and the others who were there, I said, tell me a little bit more about this kid because he's a player. And then they went to Nagpur, I think, and got knocked over for 140. He made 81 of 48 balls. And you looked at him. I didn't, as I said before on this program, I didn't quite feel what I felt when I saw Mohammad Ashraful. Because when I saw Mohammad Ashraful, my jaw was dropping. I was gaping. I was thinking, wow, he's been made in a really good mood. This kid is going to set the world on fire. And that didn't happen. But I felt this Naeem, wow, he can play. And it's been 2 years since. That is what happens when you don't give good players good tracks to play on.
And a bit of irony, Joy, it wasn't long ago that Bangladesh went and won an under-19 World Cup. And that was part of a process. It was not an accident. They had worked on that team for a good 1.5 to 2 years. And the results showed against India in that final.
Exactly. They played brilliantly. And, every one of them, they held their nerve against an very good Indian side with Yashasvi Jaiswal and so many of the players who are now currently playing. But that's the problem. If you're doing that and then you're making pitches at home, and see, whenever you have dodgy pitches, it's the batting that hurts first. You'd say it doesn't help fast bowlers because you're not going to play that many fast bowlers. But it's the batting that hurts because it's a surface which is now based on chance. And so people are not accumulating solid number of runs. And if you see, Indian and Pakistan cricket, one of the things that used to happen was we used to make a lot of batsmen because we had pitches that were, solid batting tracks. But people really had to put 300, 400, 500 runs, 1,000 Ranji Trophy runs to get into contention. And if you're not getting that much time in the middle, you're not going to build good batsmen. And that's what's happening there. Unfortunate.
Well, we'll see what the results come out as far as Bangladesh are concerned. For Australia, who have won the toss, and as Harsha said, they will take a leaf out of South Africa's book. They'll know exactly how Bangladesh handled Kagiso Rabada and Anrich Nokia. And look what they have in their lineup. Josh Hazel, Mitchell Starc, Pat Cummins. And then you can try and deal with an Adam Zampa. And they've got enough fifth bowling options in Mitch Marsh, Marcus Stoinis. Maybe Marsh hasn't bowled so much. Stoinis will be that preferred option. And at some point in time, Steve Smith will say, I need to bowl some leg spin myself. But once you can't look beyond the pace bowlers.
Or maybe a couple of overs from Glenn Maxwell if needed. But they've dropped the spinner. They've dropped Ashton Agar and they've gone back to Mitch Marsh because I don't know what his bowling fitness is, but he's quite sharp. Stoinis can, I've got tired of the word heavy ball, so I won't use it. But Stoinis can work up a little bit as well. So they've got the seam bowling options again. They're going in with one spinner and a little bit in Maxwell. That's it. Because I think they've made up their mind with Bangladesh, we are going to come hard with pace. And I won't even be surprised because net run rate could become a factor. I'm not sure it will eventually in that group because South Africa have to play England, Australia have to play West Indies. If those results don't go the way you think they will, it may not come down to it.
Well, only if the two results are identical. If both end up losing or both end up winning, only then it's a net run rate between the two.
So you've got to budget for that. Yeah. You got to budget for that. And so I suspect Australia is saying we'll go hard at the top. We'll try and knock them over early and go hard at the top. Though my view sometimes is, as happened yesterday, that batting first in a net run rate situation may not be that bad if you back yourself to make a 210, 220.
Which is exactly what India did. And there are two types of net run rate situations, Joy. One is where you're just trying to cross somebody else's net run rate. And there, obviously, fielding first makes sense because you know you have a target in mind. You get there in a certain number of overs, job done. But in a situation where you're trying to get the net run rate as high as possible, which was India's case, then batting first makes more sense because you don't have as much control of the fluctuation because of the volume of runs.
Yeah, exactly. The target setting, it's basically when you want just improvement without any specific target in mind, it's always better to bat first. And that's what we are saying. Everyone's talking about this race in between Australia and South Africa. We tend to forget the fact that as long as you don't play England in this group, And in the clash between them, it's Australia who's beaten South Africa, though they made a hash of 120 chase and took it down to the last over. So this run rate, they will want to make up, but for people to think that this is a very close race, South Africa has to win that game against England, and the form they are in, it will be quite a surprise.
Let me just check the playing conditions again. I think it's head-to-head first. I think you go to net run rate after head-to-head. So while we continue this program, I'll try and search for that. I think it's head-to-head first. So if it is head-to-head, then Australia beaten South Africa.
But I mean, if it is head-to-head, obviously it's a no-brainer. But the fact that everyone's been talking about South Africa, get your net run rate up, you're keeping an eye on Australia, it just makes me feel that chatter may not be the situation. But you could be right. If it's head-to-head first with two teams, it doesn't work with three, then there's no question about it. South Africa have to look at, even if they look at beating England, Australia beat West Indies, they're through.
But then even the India-Afghanistan clash that we are talking about, it, if Afghanistan beat New Zealand, their run rate could be up and it could still be above India. Even that wouldn't matter in that case, right?
No, but then the three teams will be on 6. If Afghanistan beat New Zealand, then New Zealand will be on 6, Afghanistan 6, India 6, and it has to be net run rate.
Then it will be net run rate. You're right.
If it's a three-way tie.
Three-way tie.
If it's a three-way tie, it will be net.
Yeah. Okay.
So the other group is a peculiar situation where two teams have the same number of points because they've lost to different teams. But their head-to-head might come in handy. So while we have this program, I'll sort of multitask a little bit.
Yes, we will. So, and Joy, let's try and focus on Australia. As we said, they're going to be obviously dishing out Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins. Josh Hazelwood, we've said it so many times, possibly the most improved bowler from the longest form to the shortest form.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually prefer that evolution when you're supposed to be this test match specialist and you turn out to be the other way. There are very few who can do it the other way. I mean, one great example of that is Bumrah, who's done it the other way. Started off with the T20, went off the 50 overs, went to test cricket. But generally, it's the other way around where really quality bowlers find a way to adapt themselves to situations. And I think, again, much is said about, Dhoni's magic as captaincy and, how he makes a difference. But what he does give to you, and I think what may not have been given earlier to somebody like a Josh Hazelwood, is clarity about what he needs to do. And somewhere, I think, playing with Chennai, he's got that clarity from Dhoni. This is what you need to do to bowl out here in these conditions. And if you notice how Dhoni's treated him, he started off with using him only up front, didn't use him very much at the end. But now he's beginning to trust him, giving him a couple of overs at the end as well. So I think that's what it is. It's a clarity of processes. You see what happens in Test cricket. Test cricket batsmen don't need to take risks. Ergo, you need to bowl good balls to get people out, which is why Sunil Narayan or a Varun Chakravarti may not be very useful in Test match cricket because they need batsmen to challenge them, to go after them. Whereas Josh Hazelwood could get a really good batsman out with a perfect outswinger. So that is the difference. And here you're adapting to a format where you say, I no longer have to bowl Jaffa deliveries to get people out. I just need to keep it at a particular place and let them make that mistake. So I think Josh Hazelwood has a much greater awareness of his game now than he did before.
Okay, correction. While I was listening to you, Joy, I was listening with very intently. But the playing conditions do say if there are teams with equal points and equal wins, then in such case, the team with a higher net run rate will be placed in the higher position. If two or more teams are still equal, it goes head-to-head now. The only thing they didn't put in that till what decimal places.
Yeah, the odds of that.
So it is.
So hence the chatter about net run rate is valid. That's the reason why everyone's been talking about South Africa going hard and keeping it up. So that's one. Once that's settled, let's get back to the Hazelwood discussion. Strangely, you normally expect something, what you do with your national side, and it rubs off on a franchise. For Hazelwood, I think it's happened the other way around. He was never their lead bowler in the shortest format. It was always Cummins if Australia thought of it. But now that he started delivering for different franchises, suddenly he's become the man to look to even for Australia.
And I thought, as Joy said, his role started to change as well as the captain trusted him a little bit more. So Australia benefited enormously from having Josh Hazelwood play at Chennai to be ready for this World Cup. And there's a lot of talk about people getting jaded because of playing the tournament. It depends on which side you look at, because sometimes we form our conclusions, then look for observations. But Yeah, even in Bangladesh, that he was leading wicket taker. Those are really good numbers. We are going all the way back to August. It's peculiar though that the ascent of Hazelwood in T20 has corresponded not exactly with a decline, but with a plateauing of the person we thought was one of the best T20 bowlers in the world. And you see Mitch Stark, and his numbers are just starting to dip. I mean, you thought Mitch Stark just has to turn up to the IPL or wherever, which other franchise tournament he wants, and he'll be the number
or
one
not
buyer.
turn up, as the matter is.
Yes, I just thought people might go at me saying you keep saying that all the time, because Mitch Marsh is also in that category now of not turning up, but for whatever reasons. So Stark has actually just dipped a little bit, even as Hazelwood's gone up.
And I think that also happened with Cummins a little bit, Joy, because if you look at the demand, in the IPL, it was Cummins, then Stark. Hazelwood wasn't even mentioned. Now, if you look at the three of them, I think Hazelwood would be number one in the pecking order.
Absolutely. Hazelwood will be number one. And
it depends on which team you're playing for.
No, actually, if you look at it now, if Kolkata went back and they looked at the auction, they'd really have to say that, on the basis of form, Lockie Ferguson should be their first pick instead of Cummins. I mean, Lockie Ferguson has definitely given them more as a strike bowler. And this is it's nothing to do with Cummins as a human being or Cummins not trying. It's just that Lockie Ferguson just has that explosiveness that he needs. And I genuinely feel that's the problem with this attack. Is it's a fantastic attack. These three bowlers are now playing almost all formats together. And yes. Again, I want to talk to people who, we are romantics about this. We talk about Lilly and Thompson or the great days of McGrath and Bretley. Technically or in terms of sheer numbers, this is possibly the best fast bowling attack in Australian history. Better than Lindwall and Miller, better than Lilly and Tomo, better than anyone else. Three fast bowlers of such quality together have probably not played in Australian cricket.
McGrath, Lee, Gillespie?
Just in terms of numbers and in terms of ratings.
Yeah. How many did they play together though? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and Gillespie was not that often as regular a pick. He came in and out. Kasparovich used to come in once in a while. There was some movement there. Whereas McGrath and Lee were reasonably, they're almost always.
Yeah, Fleming would play a bit. Damien Fleming would play a bit. Lee missed out, and Kasparovich used to play. Correct.
But an interesting one for you, Harsha. Of the one thing Cummins has over a Hazelwood is his batting. But does his batting do enough for you? Let's say you're a team owner. Does his batting do enough for you for him to maybe be even a number 7 instead of a number 8?
One game I think I saw, and he hit 5 or 6 sixes at the end. That might have been KKR MI. I think at the end he went after
completely Bumrah. Lost game,
he went out of Bumrah for 3-4 sixes, but he doesn't do that often enough. But you see the way this team has lined up now. They've got 4 full-time bowlers. Zampa's bowling beautifully. They've got 16 overs, fairly certainly 16 overs there. Now, if they've got to look for 4, they've got 3 options to deliver the 4. So on a good day, Maxwell will give you 3 overs. On another day, Stoinis will give you 3 overs. So Maxwell, Stoinis, Marsh, they've actually got their overs remaining. So they can play Wade at 7. Though I actually do believe Wade at number 1 is a far more destructive player than anywhere else. But that leaves a question of where Finch and Warner will play. But if you've still got Wade coming in at 7, that just strengthens the batting so much. Don't forget, I haven't seen Stark batting for a while in this form of the game. But Stark could hit really big ones. So he could be, 8-9, there's still a fair bit of batting 8-9.
Yeah, but interesting. I think Wade is Australia's Ishan Kishan, Joy, because it's one of those things that if you really want to get the best out of him, we've seen him in the Big Bash. We've seen that's where he likes to play in the T20 format. No space right now.
Yeah, I mean, just that's the way this team is set up. And there's, of course, another very important reason for it, because if Aaron Finch does not perform in this World Cup, he can't go to his 7th IPL team. He's gone to just 6, and it's a shame for him to stop there.
Is that
so
all?
We need to give him a minute. Yeah, I think.
I thought he done 7 or 8 teams, I thought. Whatever.
Wait, Rajasthan, Delhi, Pune, Hyderabad, Mumbai, Gujarat, Kings 11. He's done 8 already. He could go for double figures.
So that is what Tim Payne was telling him when Kohli was batting. Remember that whole stump mic discussion? You think if you do well, you'll get picked for RCB, that kind of discussion. Yeah. But if Finch and Warner are in form and they haven't been together, firing together for a while, and we're going back 2015, 16, whatever. But if Finch and Warner are in form, then wow, that is some pair. And we saw that in the game where Finch and Warner took off, was against Sri Lanka.
70 or 47 against Sri Lanka.
They just took off, and you saw the impact. So when the ball's coming on, those two are still fantastic.
And I suspect that they will be the key weapons when they play the West Indies. I mean, we're assuming that Stark, Hazelwood and Cummins will do enough against Bangladesh that Warner and Finch won't be needed to show their wares with that much urgency, except for a relatively small total. But when they play the West Indies and then look for a possible semi-final slot, that's when Warner and Finch will really be tested, especially if they bat first.
Yeah, I think Warner and Finch definitely. And look, I like the way Warner answered with his bat. There was a lot of chatter about him not being in form, about him not playing. More than anything else, people were saying you haven't played in much cricket for a month and a half. And he answered it with the bat. And there were some shots out there where you saw the old Warner. The old Warner's slightly more carefree Warner before, the whole weight of Sunrisers Hyderabad seemed to be on his shoulders. And I think he's playing good cricket again. And I think he's looking at all the new teams and saying, I could be captaining one of those people. I could be either sitting in Ahmedabad or I could be sitting in Lucknow and captaining one of these teams. So, big player, big stage. He knows what to do. I think he's capable of taking that pressure and delivering, which he just did.
There's only one thing, though. You look at a team like England and you say, what can Roy do to me? What can Bairstow do to me? What can Butler do to me? Oh, God, Moeen Ali comes at the end. He can swing his bat around. You look at this Australian team, on current form, the only player thinking, oops, what can he do to me is Maxwell. There's not enough players who you're saying, oops, what will he do to me? Against spin, but I think Maxwell against pace doesn't have a problem either. So Maxwell's in the form of his life. They just need to get Maxwell. I hope he's not going to move from 4.
But has he? The question is, this is again numbers from the IPL, but somehow Maxwell hasn't really turned up in the same manner that we've seen in this tournament. Could today be the day?
Not yet. Yeah, I mean, not yet, but today could be the day. And he's not looked, even the dismissals, if I remember right, he didn't look off form. He just looked as if he got out early. He didn't look off form. I mean, there's some batsmen you see and you say, I still feel Steve Smith is lost. He doesn't look, and that's been for the longest time. But Maxwell doesn't have that look. Maxwell just says, okay, I got out, And I think he, if they have to progress in this tournament and they have to make a serious run at it, they need Glenn Maxwell.
Yeah, I think Steve Smith at the moment is rather most test match celebrated Badrinath for CSK. He's there. You're 10 for 2, Steve Smith goes in. If you're 85 for 2, he doesn't bat.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not quite a Steve Smith example, but we did have a situation where India showed that they were willing to adapt yesterday with after going to a certain number of overs. Kohli said, no problem, I'm sitting here, I've had my helmet on all this time. Rishabh, you're the man for the situation. Hardik, go on.
I loved what India did yesterday, and I wondered why Rishabh needs a second hand on his bat. He could just play one-handed, right?
No, he
hit taking the right hand off.
He hit one particular six that was two-handed. That was remarkable, the last one. He just tried taking his hand off. It didn't come off.
But I mean, I was so happy yesterday. India did everything you wanted them to do. It's almost as if overnight someone erased doubts in their mind and sent them out to play. And that is why I was so terribly disappointed by the kind of responses that I got from certain set of people on my Twitter feed, that publications were highlighting whatever. No, yesterday was a game where a very, very good side got it right, got everything right. It doesn't happen every day. They got everything right, except the last 4 overs when they conceded 46. That was way too many. I hope that doesn't come back to haunt them.
Yeah, because every run there was a run extra
and
at pace that they have to score possibly against Namibia in the final game. And of course, make up for it against Scotland as well. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, Joy. For the moment, it's not the bowlers, the batsmen who'll ask questions for the next 20 seconds. It's your Joy Factor question. Is it a Diwali special?
Let's take a look. In this test match in Bengaluru in the 90s, okay, Anil Kumble took 9 wickets and Azhar scored 87 for India, while the opposing captain was the top scorer for his team. Who was the only debutant in that match? And I'm not talking about officials, only player debutant in that match.
Fair point. So no googlies here. No sparklers being set off over there. So he's already clarified.
There's a little bit here. There's something there.
Fair enough. There's something there. That's all. That's all we'll tell you. There's something there. Harsha's thinking very deeply, Harsha.
No. It seems to me simple. I'm trying to think it's not what I think it is.
Exactly.
There has to be a little twist somewhere. Huh?
All right.
Okay.
Well,
There's no twist.
we need
There's no twist.
we need to actually get our quick prediction in, because I'm hearing there could possibly be an early wicket for Mitchell Stark already. So in the light of that, Harsha, how much of an impact are they going to have? Is it even going to be three figures?
I was going to go sort of 117, 120 thereabouts. It's because, I mean, you can't, a team like, it's a decent team. I know they lost to Scotland. They can't get 80 all out every day, though, even though Liton Das is gone already. But I'll still go 118.
Okay.
120 final.
Just to save my visa, I'm going three figures, but I'll go 103.
Okay, I'm being optimistic, or my father comes from that part of the world, as does my mother. So 131.
Fair enough. It's one of those things when we make predictions, are we making it from our heart? Are we making it from our head? Are we making it from our passport? Yeah, for me, it was from my passport. I was trying to get another few runs added on there, but I hopefully no one's listening right now. All of you in Bangladesh, you didn't hear that. We were just talking about many other things.
You're on the biggest cricket website in the world.
Yeah, but I'm still hoping that no one heard that.
But everybody is. More people watch this than anything else.
Yes, I agree. So I apologize.
You can say my intentions. You can say I meant 103 because I thought Australia will get bowled out for 96.
No, I did apologize. The last time around, I apologized and I lowballed and they fell lower than that. But again, we all know we've got great hopes for Bangladesh cricket. 12 months down the line, they're going to be bouncing back and just hoping to lay a foundation right here, right now. Australia have already struck the first blow. We will be back in the 10th over to see how Bangladesh have progressed. We hope they'll be halfway to a pretty decent total to set Australia a challenge. That's all we have. Once again, happy Diwali to everyone. We'll keep saying that throughout the day. Joy, Harsha, thank you. See you gentlemen soon. 10th over, Cricbuzz Combox. And we'll be back on Cricbuzz Live.